in full grasp. When it becomes completely um, hidden, and what you have is just the levush, garment. Because the etzem ha'oyer cannot be thus concealed, as we discussed yesterday. All right. So we're on this line that starts with the eter, and it's at the end of the parentheses, the chol zeh. That this type of hislapshus, or tfiso, ein or shayach be'epnimi li'atzmi, is not applicable, is not possible in an oil that has a pnimi and an internal oil and an atzmi oil. So let me discuss briefly again the principle of oil pnimi atzmi. Atzmi is very difficult really to express, but pnimi we can, and from that we will be able to project the from atzmi. Pnimi has a contrast, which is chitzoni. And the principle of chitzoni is that this is how the oil can be observed. An observation means the whole principle of observation begins with the fact that you could see where this oil starts, where it's coming from. Because something that is constant you can't observe. There's nothing to observe. You can observe only, so to speak, an active process. And that is under chitzonis. That's what chitzonis is. Chitzonis means it's coming from someplace, and you could see how it's coming from someplace. And therefore you can observe it. Observe it in contrast to its source, and so forth. Pnimi, even though it's also an oir, but oir pnimi does not get solicited, does not get elicited. It is there inherently in the source. Thus, oir pnimi cannot be absorbed in a levush because it has inherent reality, inherent truth. Let's leave it at that at this moment, because the minute we start in that, the whole shiur will go. We'll have a chance to discuss Pnimi again. Just wanted to contrast it and say, Pnimi, this is something which has a source, but it is in the source itself. It is an inherent in the source. It's not solicited by anything. And therefore, this oil represents the source itself. And that oil pnimi cannot be mislabesh in levushim in the manner that the levush will have full grasp and contain this oil totally. There will be totally absorbed and slavish in this levush. This is a clear allusion to the union that we encounter very often when we talk about certain inyonim, even in a human being, certain concepts that no matter how much you talk about it, you can never fully express it. Although you can clearly recognize it. because this is something which is based on some kind of a reality, pnimi. And therefore it cannot be really fully grasped in a garment. Again, I'm limiting these points now because we already discussed a lot and we can go on indefinitely. Okay, at the end of this line, V'hagam the Torah gamkin. Hagam the Torah gamkin yislapshu beis hadas. Although that the Torah too was mislabesh, had come to be expressed in Eis Hadas, through Das. Because we were saying the whole time that Torah, this is the opening of Yatzmi. But Torah also is mislab and mislabish in Eis Hadas. How can it be that the opening of Yatzmi is mislabish in Eis Hadas? Ad sheyochel liyois, it's mislabish to the extent that yochel liyos, it's possible mas me'ilim bo. That would be mas me'ilim bo. In Torah itself, there would be different opinion. Mas me'ilim, those that view that goes to the left within Torah itself, which means there is in Torah also a complete dichotomy, a complete like Toivara in a sense, right and left. But Torah we're saying is pnimi v'yatzmi. So the explanation is Hine ha-Torah hi b'chines eis hachayim be'etzem. In essence, Torah is eis hachayim, not eis hadas, but eis hachayim. Sheho b'chinas pnimi is ho'er, which is the aspect of pnimi is ho'er. Okay, we'll go one more line and then we'll have a little bit of a perspective. Sheharei. Why do we say that Torah is b'chinas pnimi zohir? Since that ein ha-Torah be'etzem b'chinas eis hadas. Be'etzem, in essence, Torah is not in the element of eis hadas. Torah is not based on das. Ki be'etzem hi b'chinas eis hachayim. In essence, Torah is eis hachayim v'hi kulo toiv, and thus it is kulo toiv, all good. It is not, there is no eis hadas toivara. Be'etzem, this is not what Torah is. Okay, here we'll stop and discuss this thing. For many reasons. One is it is a rich union, and the other thing is that we don't have to go through a great length because we already discussed it many times. Most recently, we were talking about Lois Signov as an example. The Eitz Hadas element in Lois Signov is the principle that there are two people here. Each one owns his own property, his own possessions, and the Das says that you must not interfere with the other person's possessions. So there is a concrete and definitive presence of this whole phenomenon. This is not a concept, this is not a ruchnische concept, it's a practical concept. And it can be taken even further. That one could say the whole reason why you should not is because if you do that, you are disturbing society. Which means that from there, if you go to that point, you're saying that really the offense of taking somebody else's possessions is not so offensive. It's not such a terrible thing. Let him protect his possessions. You have to respect his possession has to respect him. Let him protect it. Just like the liar, lahavdil, protects his turf, let him protect his possessions. There is a halacha, for example, that occasionally a person has to leave home, and he leaves his home unprotected. So it depends. This is the Gemara speaks about an halacha. If a person leaves home under threat, whether it's threat of some kind of bandit or threat of government and the government is looking for him in those days to kill him, and he leaves without any provision for protecting his property, then the Bezdin is obligated to go in and protect his property. But if he leaves irresponsibly, or even if he has a good reason to leave, because he's trying to get to a certain goal who owes him money and he wants to save the money, in the meantime he leaves his property unprotected. And if a monetary base, he's not obligated. The person is not obligated to protect it. Because he has the mind is full, he has to be able to, at this moment, provide for safety of his property. And if he doesn't provide, nobody's responsible for it. It doesn't mean that you have to go and rob him, but nobody's responsible for it. In other words, there is not an inherent element that you have to protect his property. This is how it comes out, on the practical level. So that is essentially what Torah is mislavish and is hadas. What we say, this is Torah is mislavish and hadas, and it actually functions even at that level. But in reality, anyone who goes and violates his property, even though the person is not obligated to protect it, the violation is very deep, because it's an inherent reality. It's esachai, as we spoke yesterday. This is the godly reality. So in essence, Torah is Etzachayim. Except it also functions, so to speak. Nislavish Bizadas. In other words, it comes down even to the level where it can be, where it is identifiable from Eitz Hadas perspective. But this does not define the full impact and the full meaning in Torah. What is Eitz HaChaim? This is what we spoke a lot yesterday. And Eitz HaChaim just to give us a clear and direct view of this principle. I go down to the very basic. The Rambam says that the first principle of wisdom is to know that is the first being. I would ask a question: how does one come to know that the first being if he still doesn't have the wisdom? And the explanation is, I go point all the time, this knowledge flows not from Eitz Hadas, but from Eitz HaChaim. This knowledge comes from this nefesh, from the living nefesh. The living nefesh tells him that life has a true source, a true presence. There's a motzidisha mamtsikol nimtza, amitisi motzi nimtza kol nimtza. His very life experience tells him that. And then it comes out in Eitz Hadas, and he begins to focus in and to understand what is it that I sense that there is a first being. What is it I find that sense that step back? What is it that I sense that life is a reality? Where does the reality come from? There's a real first being, but that imbues life. Cannot place it in Eitz Hadas, but he recognizes it. And at that basis, he interprets his whole world on the Eitz Hadas perspective level. Meaning to say, since that there is Eitz HaChaim, since that there is Motzei Rishon, therefore, your view of the world is totally different. You have to respect other people's property. Inherently. Because the whole property is based on the presence of the Motzei Rishon. And it doesn't have to be calculated. It's obvious to a living person, this reality. This is what he's saying. Toirei be'etzem is thank you very much. Is Eitz HaChaim. But it is also mislabesh in Eitz Hadas, meaning to say that from this Eitz HaChaim element, then it illuminates even the world, which is essentially an Eitz Hadas level. But the principle remains Eitz HaChaim. Let's continue in this. B'yinyan hislapshuso be'etz hadas. And what is the inyan? What is the meaning? What is the purpose? What is the significance of the Torah being mislabesh in Eitz Hadas? I don't see the time. 57?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm not turning on.
Well, what's the difference? As long as all I'm interested is in the time. Because my batch is that's it. The Inyan is lapshuso b'chinas Eitz Hadas. What is the Inyan that Torah is mislabish Eitz Hadas? What's the function of that hislapshus? Okay, let's understand this question, so to speak. What is the Inyan of Lapshuso Eitz Hadas? Since that Torah does not become fully mislabish in Eitz Hadas, it does not become part and parcel of Eitz Hadas. It remains Eitz HaChaim. But it's mislabish in Eitz Hadas. So what is the extent and what is the meaning? It's mislabish in Eitz Hadas while it remains Eitz HaChaim. And the union is who? It is bigdei levarer. It is in order to clarify and to distinguish between Tevet between Tevet. This is where the hislapshus of Torah, Eitz Hadas, finds its expression, its meaning. Because that in the realm of Eitz Hadas, Das, in and of itself, when when world elements are distinctly identified and becomes a form. But they got disconnected.
Shlomo, the conference is disconnected. Yeah.
What happened here?
The battery didn't charge.
I charged the whole night. What is the Das in itself can lose perspective of Tevet. And for this reason, you need Eitz HaChaim that would keep it in perspective, keep it in view.
Sorry, Das, what was it?
Das in itself, once
it's Islamic.
the Metzias, the Metzias of the world becomes so definitively identified in itself, then it can be confusing from Tevet. And in order to keep that in perspective and to illuminate that phenomenon, you need the Eitz HaChaim.
That's what allows the Bira?
That's what Bira is. What?
That's the Eitz HaChaim coming into the...
That's the Slapshus and Slavish and Eitz HaChaim in Zadas to be Mevarer in this, to Mevarer between Toiv and Ra. Okay, a few more words. So, K'meisha Kosu. And as the Pasuk says, Lahavdil, to distinguish, Bein HaTomei, etc., Bein HaTomei and HaToyer, to distinguish between Tomei and Toyer. And Toyer has that capability to distinguish between Toher and Tomei, even to effectuate that place where Tomei and Toyer are existent, and to distinguish between Toyer and Toyer. V'zeho lefi, and that is why does Torah have that capability? Lefi shehi b'bchinas pnimius. Be'etzem, because Torah is in pnimius in essence, which means shekvar nase havdolo be'atzmus, where there is already a distinction in atzmus ben hapnimius v'achitzenius, between chitzenius. Al came, and thus, for this reason, it is within its capacity levarer to clarify and to ulhavdin and to distinguish lamato, even he below ben tev lora, between the toiv and ra. K'meshi is what, as will still be explained.
There's the etzem, there is pnimius and chitzonius. He's saying that the etzem, there's pnimius and chitzonius already. That's why when it comes down, it's able to.
No. In Atzmus, there was the distinction between pnimius and chitzonius. Chitzonius, this is the haora, and pnimius, this is the oil. And that distinction has already been imbued into Torah. And therefore there, at that level, from Etzem perspective, it cannot be confused. want to. We need a little bit of a handle on this. We have pointed out, and this is the point of of Torah in general, that what is Toiv? Toiv is exclusively, because the only truth, anything that's true, is Beis, is coming from Motzi Rishon Mamti Kol Nimtza. Toiv is only that which emanates in direct flow from that Motzi Rishon Mamti Kol Nimtza. You can construe any kind of Toiv in the world, and it is the furthest thing from Toiv. Like the Alter Rebbe says right in the beginning of Tanya.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Kol Tivu di Avda Sekven Zoyer. Tivu di Avdi Umis Evdi Yiluni. The good that Umis Evdi do is Klippe, is Ra. What kind of Ra? Ra Gomer. So is Klippe that means. Das ist der Pshat, Hislapshus be'ejadas tevora. It's totally mislavish, and the good is identified by what kind of person am I? Look what good I did. So this is why I'm explaining all the time. The Rambam gives the first principle, never to lose sight of. The Alter Rebbe explains in Tanya, this is one which we just learned recently. B'zehu klal b'chosita d'gdush, she'inem el mashe nimshach mi'hachoch. It is a sita d'gdusha, and this has to do with gdusha. It has to be something that only that which is nimshach mi'hachoch.
What?
Only that which comes through chochmah. Chochmah. Chochmah perceives the godly truth, and then if it's nimshach min chochmah, it can go into bina and midas. But if it skips over chochmah and it creates a beautiful palace within the worldly perspective, it is Ra Gomer. And it's very easy to be confused. The only element that stays clear on that is Torah. Because Torah is the essence of Pnimis Holocaust. And never loses sight of what it's about. It's not possible. We pointed out interesting halachas, mitzvahs, and the Ganav and Gazlan. It's very easy to lose sight of this. Gazlan, or a chutzpah, a Ganav, he's going in stealth. And the Torah says, the Ganav is the real criminal. The Gazlan is also a criminal. But the Ganav is much more profound. I don't think you can go to any legislator in the whole world who would say, yes, that's exactly what it is. In the country, he would argue to the end. I don't understand this. Who cares what his kanmona is? Look what he did. So this, in a nutshell, is principle that Torah is pnimis, and therefore it's a chai, and always remains connected to that source. And therefore it can go into its hadas arena and be mevarech. And make statements that don't make any sense from the hadas perspective. And it makes perfect good sense from the Torah perspective. I think this is it, right? All right, this is it for this morning.